Hi travelers, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about London, England, and what you should know before you go. London is an amazing city and there's so much to see or do, and it can be overwhelming planning a trip or once you're there trying to figure out everything that's going on in the city. So I figured I would compile a small list of things to know before you go, because I did just go in October of 2021. So let's go ahead and get started with the list of things you should know before you go to London, England. My first thing that you should definitely know is that London is huge. It's a ginormous city, and I knew this, but I didn't really understand the scope of how big it is until I fully saw it myself. It's just so big and so overwhelming in really great ways, but there's a lot going on in London. There's a lot of people that live there. There's a lot of people that travel into the city for work and for other things. So it's just a huge city. And because London is so huge, I want to make a point to not overwhelm yourself trying to get from place to place. London is one of those cities that you could stay for literally years and still not see everything that you want to see. Both Jamie and I really had the realization that, okay, we're not going to be able to see everything that we want to see, so let's go ahead and try to see all the things that we can see and save the rest for the next time that we visit. So try not to overwhelm yourself, as the distances are really far from each other. It can be really hard to try to fit everything into 1 to 2 to 3 days. So try not to overwhelm yourself, be realistic with your plans, and just enjoy whatever you do get to see. My second thing that I want to talk about today goes hand in hand with the first one, and because London is so big, I highly recommend using the tube. The tube is so wonderful, and I'm so thankful that I was able to use it and really got used to it. The tube was so nice, and I know it can be really overwhelming if you've maybe never used a subway system or public transportation, but it truly is so easy. I would highly suggest getting an Oyster card when you're there, and then that way you can just tap in and tap out whenever you're going onto the tube. There's also really wonderful apps that you can use that I'm going to place right here, that you can put where you're coming from and your destination, and it will tell you exactly which tube lines to get on. It was so nice to be able to just plug it in. Highly suggest using one of those apps, but also just highly suggest using the tube. It made our life so much easier. Like I said, London's very big, and it can be really hard to walk from place to place just simply because of timing. I'm a huge walker, but honestly, just to cut down on time, it was great to hop on the tube, and instead of walking for an hour, I've cut down the time to maybe a 20-minute tube ride. So highly suggest doing that. It can be really daunting at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's so easy, and you'll be like, why did I ever think that this was crazy? This is the best thing ever. You will love it. It's the greatest way to get around in London. My third know before you go is that London can be pretty expensive. Now, there are ways that you can cut down on these costs, but I would highly suggest researching whatever way fits your budget and fits the way you want to travel before you go. Like I said, there's tons of options, but everyone kind of has a budget, so I would suggest researching beforehand, but also taking advantage of the free things to do in the city is so awesome. There's tons of museums and public parks that you can go and really have an amazing time and see so much history. So if you're balling on a budget, I would highly suggest doing those options. Or maybe you want to do a really big tour heavy day and then maybe not spend so much money on the next day. Those free options are a great way to balance out that cost. Also, And you can definitely just walk around the city and take in the life. Buckingham Palace you can walk in front of for free. Westminster Abbey you can walk in front of for free. You know, Parliament, all that area you can just walk around in front of for free. Obviously, if you want to go into anything, it does cost, but I would highly suggest taking advantage of those free things to counteract the cost, because London, like I said, can be pretty expensive. So depending on your budget, definitely do your research. The fourth thing I want to talk about is the food. So London is like this big, like amazing international city. There are so many walks of life, different backgrounds, and with this comes amazing food. So yes, you can go into the pubs and you can get those fish and chips that are so amazing and so quintessentially English, and you can have your high teas and you can do all that fun stuff, but there's also a lot of major cuisines that are so good and so well represented in the area. I highly suggest doing your research and finding really cool international places to eat while you're in London and take advantage of all the amazing food. Oh my gosh, I think back on it and I'm like, wow, I miss that food. So it's really, really good. Highly suggest eat your way through London. My fifth no before you go is going to be one of those obvious ones, but I feel like I have to say it. Bring some type of raincoat or umbrella. Now, I know everyone says that in England it's always rainy. Now, granted, yes, it does rain some, it is overcast some, but we also had really, really pleasant days where it was very sunny. So just do your due diligence for checking the weather and bring a raincoat if you need. It's always great to have, just because you never know when a little shower is going to pour down, and it's miserable walking around a city when you're wet. So definitely highly suggest, checking the weather. Bring your raincoat, bring your umbrella. Definitely check that weather. The sixth no before you go also might seem a little obvious. However, I know that maybe this is your first time ever traveling to the UK, and I'm really speaking to those people for this point. And it is that they do drive on the opposite side of the road. So this is for all my United States citizens that are watching this. They do drive on the opposite side of the road as us, so please be aware of this. It can be really easy to look the wrong side of the road and you don't catch a car coming the opposite way before you decide to go and cross a crosswalk. Remember that they are coming in the opposite direction, and we would not want a terrible accident to happen. So yes, remember that. And also, if you're driving, obviously it can take a second to get used to, but it truly is not as hard as a lot of people think it is or are scared of, because I know it can be really daunting to think about driving in the opposite way, but I promise it's so easy to get used to. Just takes a minute to get used to. My last point is more so about the country of England itself. So obviously London is this beautiful, amazing city, but there's so much more to England than London, and I don't have the time today to cover everything that's so wonderful about England, but I just wanted to make a point that if you are going to England and you're going to spend the majority of your time in London, I highly suggest getting out of London for at least a day or two on a day trip to see what England looks like outside of the city. London is such a big city, and while it's so amazing to see that type of culture and the hustle and bustle, truly England is so different outside of the city, and it's great to see all walks of life. I loved going to the Cotswolds and seeing the Stonehenge, as touristy as that is. I also went out and saw Hampton Court Palace, which was King Henry VIII's palace back in the day, and there's just so much history to be seen there. But it was wonderful to see the English countryside, the small English villages that are there that are just so beautiful and just so different than London. While I know that there's so much to see in London, I really highly suggest getting out of the city to make sure you get that escape from the city life and also see what England has to offer in the countryside and in other cities around the country. So while I know that we can sit here and speak about London, England forever, I hope that these few tips really help you plan your trip, and hopefully you have an amazing time while you're in London, England, and hopefully seeing much more than just London as well. England is such an amazing place. The people are wonderful, the food is wonderful. There's so many things about, you know, history and nature, and just it's an amazing place. So I hope you have an amazing time. If you guys have any more additional tips for those folks that are going, go ahead and comment down below and we can share back and forth with each other. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Please give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye and happy travels!